So now I'm headed over to Thom Craver at CBS Interactive at the Broadcasting Center in New York City to talk to him about what he does for CBS with his SEO efforts and maybe talk about some specific topics in SEO that he is specifically passionate about. So looking forward to checking out his office and talking to him about his job and his passion for SEO. We all know how important site speed is, not just when it comes to improving your user experience and conversion rates on your website, but a little search engine named Google uses page speed as a ranking factor. That is where Ezoic comes in, with their standalone site speed accelerator. This tool is guaranteed to improve your site speed, not just for your visitors, but also will give you an 80+ score on your Google Page Speed Insights. Ezoic guarantees it. Ezoic also offers a whole suite of publisher tools, not just for site speed, but also for ad technology, compliance features, analytics, and so much more. So check them out at www.ezoic.com. Tom, thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
To the studio. This is where it all happens, right here.
Live from Studio 10. This is one of several studios, actually.
One of several studios. We walked by, when I walked up to the thing, there's a big thing about like the Late Show, the Late Tonight Show.
So you saw about all our posters. Actually, the Late Show is down the street over on Broadway and 53rd, but you walked by the CBS This Morning studios and Studio 57 where the Evening News is broadcast out of here. So
it's a cool place to be. I've never been here. I've been to the other network. I'm not going to say who that other network is, but I've never been to this network, so thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure.
For those who don't know you, which I think probably most people watching this video probably know who you are, but could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you...
Sure. I am Thom Craver. I am the Lead SEO Analyst. Work for CBS Interactive, assigned to the CBS News division, where I work with all the writers, all the editors, for all the various programming that goes on our digital network, CBSN, for all the news stories that go up online, and also the shows. So things like Face the Nation, 60 Minutes, CBS This Morning, Evening News.
It's amazing. It's just like the amount of stuff you need to do in this company is just amazing. And you've been working here for how many years now?
I've been here for 3 years, so awesome. It's a long time.
And you've been doing SEO for probably a couple decades, right?
Easily 20 years at this point.
20 years. And how'd you get into SEO? Can you tell us a little about that?
So, out of college, we all were building web pages, that kind of stuff. I was very early, 93, I was building my first web pages, writing CGI scripts. I eventually started a company a few years later, and it's kind of like, you build websites for people and you convince them why they should, have a website at the time. This was like 97. And at the end it was like, okay, so you built it, now they'll come. And I was like, yeah. I think we all were at that time. So, it's like, my story can't be that unique. It's, people say, how do you bring people to the website? Then you start looking, hey, with this thing, back then it was, what was it? It was alt tag spamming and H1s, and that's pretty much all that existed back then. Right. And you follow along and you watch what's working and what isn't working. And then there's conferences and you go to them and you start speaking at them and, but you learn what works. And actually, so eventually it became called SEO. Right. We all started learning that, doing that. After a while, it was, okay, so now you got them here, that's great. Why didn't they buy from me? Yeah. Well, and then I started learning analytics and kind of went down that road. So it's been a long journey, but it started in technical. It went to, SEO, which was, it's still technical. It's still a little art and whatever. And then it was analytics. So I've got this full 360-degree picture of what's going on.
It's amazing looking back at how much has changed over the years. But you have a pretty interesting resume, at least not just from like your experience, which is obviously tremendous, but in terms of the personalities you work with in our SEO community over the years. So I think, I'm not sure what the timeline is, but you worked with Jim Boykin during the, I think, We Build Pages days, maybe into the...
It was past that. It was the Ninjas days, but yeah.
You worked with Mike Grehan at Acronym.
Yep.
And you also worked with who's the other?
Lee Odden.
Lee Odden.
Lee Odden from
TopRank. TopRank, and that was one of your earlier agency jobs, right?
That was after I sold my company, after I went back to higher ed, and then I went to work for him for a while.
So how has that experience working with those personalities impacted your SEO outview and career?
It's funny because I talked about back in the day, right? And you go to conferences and I remember seeing, throw some old names out there, right? But I mean, Danny led the SES conferences back when it was like 4 days long, and he did that whole first session that was forever long, and it covered everything. Lee was one of the first speakers I saw. Mike was always present there at those things too. And when somebody like Lee comes and says, "Hey, at a conference, I want to talk to you. You want to, we have a spot. Do you want to work?" And you're like, I feel like a kid in a candy store, and you're like, wow. And you move on, and things happen, and things change. But I mean, seeing all those different places and working with all those names who all have their own take on what the industry is and how they've succeeded in the industry, you get a much larger perspective, and there's so much to learn from listening to everybody and watching everybody and following in footsteps, bringing new things to the table, seeing what works and what doesn't together, and it's fun, it's fascinating.
So before coming to you, actually, I met with Mike at Acronym. So I'll make sure to, I guess this video will be published after that. I'll make sure to include that video thumbnail at the end of this video. So check that out, smash that like button, right, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
Ding that bell.
Hit the suggested next button and watch me and Mike together.
Yes. So that's amazing. Lee is kind of transitioned a little bit out of the SEO space a little bit. I saw him last year at PubCon. He spoke there and so forth, but it's always in you he's like kind of like more in the, I think, conversions and analytics type of space, which is kind of related, but he's out of the core SEO space, but he said it's always part of him.
Oh, it is. You can't leave it. Web development is always, if you came from a technical background, that's always with you.
Right.
And people are going, redirect what? And you're like, oh, it's this here, and you just know it. Lee also had the whole content marketing thing that he pretty much owned in his space for a long time too. Right. So it was SEO, it was content as king, and now it's moving on. But it's all connected.
Yeah.
And that's where the real semantic understanding of things comes into play when you see how it's all tied together, because it is.
This is what I love about these interviews. It's like just going back in history, because things seem to be always better back in history. Cause I guess you don't remember the bad things, I guess, but it's just great reminiscing.
Florida.
It was great to write about. I mean,
it was fun. Yeah.
It was the first time like the main press ever thought, oh my goodness, Google has an impact on business.
Right.
It was the first time I think any major Wall Street, I forgot who covered it, but New York Times, Wall Street Journal, it was the first time hey, you better start writing about this. And now what I notice is major publications never write about search anymore, Google search. It's always about all the other Google things.
Right.
All the other alphabet properties.
Well, every once in a while you'll see that too. When you have I remember the story was JCPenney, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah.
Getting knocked off, and that was a big deal. But I mean, when people try to game the system, when they don't like it, the political season just went past with the midterms and whatnot, all the different ads, and Google is favoring this or Google isn't. There's still questions about the black box that is the Google algorithm. And what's fascinating, especially being here in news, which is neat because I have a completely different perspective than most of my peers writing this up in the political scene. They'll sit there and they'll say, well, does Google have a slant? How does this actually work? I'm like, I got you, actually. Here, let me explain how this works. Mm-hmm. But those ads, okay, here's how the ads work, and there's a budget involved, and there's, depending on what time of day and how much budget your competitors have left, and people don't realize what kind of can of worms they open, and they want the soundbite, especially politicians want that soundbite. Well, Google is biased against us.
Right.
No. And what are you looking up that you think that this is going to, because nobody realizes the personalization of search. And I mean,
it's upsetting. I mean, when I see family members and friends that don't understand search, and they really believe there is this bias of Google's, like my liberal friends would say Google's too, conservative, and my conservative friends would say Google's too liberal, and this publication, Fox is showing too much, or New York Times is showing too much, or whatever. It's so frustrating to hear, especially when you understand how this stuff works. So.
Well, and from my point of view, I'm in the news space all day long, so I'm not just playing with Google search as an algorithm. I'm playing with Discover and with Google News too on top of it all. And people sitting there in the Google News forums, you're looking for a nugget about tech support on something and why your feeds aren't working the way they should be working, and somebody's going, Google's so biased against this. I'm like, there's settings, you can turn off these. Yes. And then just if you're going to be that mainstream about it, then let's talk about it and have a discussion. Let's not just throw my side, because even that is getting political now. It's just.
Yeah, I guess it's much worse for you being in the news space, talking to your friends and family.
And it's fun, and then that's my fault, right? Because I can. I mean, as SEOs, I think we've all heard, well, you control Google, why can't you just do this? Somebody said to me today, we came up for Edward Snowden, but not Ed Snowden. And then you start getting into a conversation about trends and what people are actually searching for, the volume of, and it's like.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, working at CBS, obviously, you probably cross the spectrum of SEO, technical SEO, content development, and everything. What's your favorite thing right now in SEO? Pick one baby.
One baby. Oh, geez, probably Schema. Okay. Honest to God, Schema.
Why?
Since it was introduced, and that's going back almost a decade now at this point, right? At least 8 years. It's really been, and this is going to be the definition of what Google wants you to say, but it really is. It's how Google understands the difference between words on a page and actual concepts of what those words mean. And to be able to connect those dots is a lot of fun. Looking back at my consulting days, doing things like, reviews. Everybody talked about spamming reviews. I remember speaking at conferences, and then I remember it was really quick. This was probably one of the first technologies that Google very quickly pivoted and realized people are going to spam this, and they had penalties in 6-7 months.
Very quick.
When Schema came out, especially for reviews, which were a gold mine. Again, it's back to alt tags, so just spam these things and let them happen. But but once you start using them properly, what really happens, and again, it's going to sound like the Google line, but it actually is true in this case. Google understands mostly what people are searching for, and if they understand the result better, they'd so reward you.
In terms of rankings? In
terms of rankings, yeah, or at least raising you up, or at least highlighting you in the right things, right?
And putting you in places where you can't rank if you didn't have this.
Exactly. People can spam something and say, oh, I'm all about this, this, and this, put a video in that talks about this, and all they're really trying to do is get you to get some page views or some ad clicks or whatever, and they don't really care about their content, they're just writing it for that sake. But when you actually are trying to inform the users properly and you put the right schema in the right places, for example, if we're writing about the latest movie premiere, coming up or an Oscar ceremony, you can put schema in there that describe the movie and the actors involved in that, and then maybe the ratings, and point to a different rating site for that matter. At least from my point of view, we can point to different ratings at a Metacritic or an IMDb or whatever. But it helps Google understand. And then from the user standpoint, you see the little stars underneath. You see where that movie is playing, or you see that, hey, the award show starts at 8 o'clock, and here's how you can watch it, or you can watch it in this live stream here, or whatever. It works. And it's probably the first technology, I think, that you can use legitly from an SEO point of view, still works with creating decent, good content that is good for the end user, and the results actually become more relevant for the end user. And I think in the holistic hold hands and sing kumbaya moment, everybody really wins in that one.
But there are some SEOs that say you don't win. I think in where your implementations are, it depends on the schema, but like some people are saying with how-to schema, FAQ schema, you're missing out on the clicks. Google's response to that is, do you care about those clicks? Are they sending you traffic that's going to lead to a conversion? Stuff like that. That's Google's like, all right, so if somebody wants to know about the FAQs on your website, are they going to FAQs to actually convert and buy something or something else? So I guess the way you implemented it, it doesn't make a difference. CBS is more about branding. It's more about, do you get that view? Do you get that person seeing that review at 5 stars on that specific type of show, I guess?
Right. Well, the question becomes too, there's how-to schema and FAQ schema that you embed on your page, and it's all your answers.
Right.
There's also the ones that Google suggests right underneath that in some cases that will never get you those clicks anyway either. You can direct people with the answers that you're writing into that schema, and it also depends on how you're monetizing that page. Are you going for somebody filling out a form and contacting you, and that's your idea of a conversion? Are you selling something legitly on your site? Or do you just want ads for the page views? Either way, you're probably going to lose out on some of that at some point. But there's a touch point in the brand that you're being helpful. And when the person is ready to look for the next step in that evolution, whether you're selling information that is news like we are, or you're selling actual products online, or you're selling a service, at some point in time, the hope is that you can be found for the other queries when they say, whatever I'm looking for near me or whatever, you'll come up for that. And the touch point has already been there. It's a hit and miss.
Let's go back to the politics side, because I interviewed Rand Fishkin. I don't know if you saw that interview.
I did.
I think it was. I'll make sure to include that in the other card at the end of this video. In any event, or maybe Google will figure it out for me, because it's listening to what I'm saying right now. Maybe.
I'll check my ads on my phone.
Figure it out. In any event, he talked about Google basically sending less and less traffic to your site. It got political. It went to Congress and Senate. They were talking about it, citing his case study. Do you think it's an issue? It sounds like you don't. So
you know what?
I personally don't think. I'll be honest.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's an issue. I think ultimately it's about the searcher, and I ultimately think that most SEOs feel like if they don't get those rich snippets, whatever they are, even if the click-through rate is slower, that Google doesn't find their site to be of certain value, and they're missing out on something.
I'll tell you what, from my point of view, not even an SEO hat, just from a user perspective, there's so many times I'm looking for a how do I do this, or how did I tweak that?
Right.
I get that featured snippet with a picture, which isn't always the picture that goes with the article at all. It could be a second site.
Right. For sure.
And I'll read the instructions, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like what I'm looking for. I'll click to get the full story, because it's still a snippet. You still don't give away the farm. That's content writing.
Right.
But there's half the times those are wrong. And I'll go back and I'll send the feedback, and if Google listens, they listen. If they don't, they don't, whatever. But I send the feedback saying that didn't help me, and I'm still searching. And Google knows that I've refined my query 4 more times and still didn't find what I was looking for. And, so the rich snippet, even if it does work, it could have been the best brand in the world.
Right.
They didn't give me what I was looking for, and their answer was completely different set of instructions than I was actually finding, or at least hoping to find. And now I'm mad at that brand, and I won't come back again, even though they keep coming up in search.
Yeah.
We've all experienced that too. I mean, we've said, oh yeah, I'm staying away from them, and
Right.
And I'm sure from the political news standpoint even too.
Right.
Oh, here's Fox, oh, here's CBS, oh, here's, far left somebody, pick somebody, right? I mean,
that's why Google shows these multifaceted snippets where they show 2 different feature snippets answering the question 2 different ways, depending
sure, how you ask, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And let's face it, they need to know more. They're still not infallible. They've gotten better and better, and Schema is a really great way of saying, this is what I mean. It's still just a concept. Do you use Google Discover at all? Do you see your feed? Okay, so in your feed, you'll get a story about a topic that you care about.
Right.
Maybe it's a particular TV show,
Right.
but it's the actor who's associated with that TV show who is like the 3rd level down. You don't really, it's not even a secondary character. It's a walk-on that happened to be repeated 3 times. I don't care about that person. And Google Discover says, why did you dismiss this? Don't you care about this TV show? Yes, I do, but that wasn't about the TV show. It was about this actor who I really don't care about that has absolutely nothing to do with the TV show, not even the future production of it.
Yeah,
and to understand,
Google's going to get better and better over time.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the same thing is true about, did the right snippet come up? Or does it matter that I'm not getting that click from that snippet because did I satisfy the answer I was looking for?
Right.
No. Then I don't care about that brand anymore, especially if they keep burning me 3, 4, 5 times in a row.
Got it.
If I do it once, fine, whatever. But to go back to what you were saying, is it political? I think if people understand more how this stuff works, it isn't.
I don't think people will ever understand.
No, I don't think they will either. You have the right as a store owner to say, no. I think no shirt, no shoes, no service is a law. But still, if they don't like something, or if you're at a bar and they feel like you've drank too much, whether you have or haven't, it's the bartender's choice. They can kick you out, and they have the right to do so. They're a private entity.
Right.
They're a private business. Publicly traded or not, Google is as well.
Right.
It's not until the government starts federally regulating them, and then there's other implications there.
Right.
Should they regulate them? There's another question altogether. And
I don't know. We could sit here for hours talking.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But as you know, the YouTube audience has maybe a 10 to 15 minute, not even attention span.
We lost them 5 minutes ago.
It's gone. If you're listening till now,
sorry, folks, but thanks for
definitely hit
staying
that
with
like
us.
button. I do appreciate it. How can people follow you and learn more about you?
Oh, absolutely. At Thom Craver. My branding is everywhere. Everything is Thom Craver. So at Thom Craver on Twitter, LinkedIn. I've got bylines on CBS News. I do write things sometimes. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks, Barry.
This is what I love about these interviews, talking with these legendary SEOs that have been in the business for so long with so many different perspectives, working at massive companies, their own companies, multiple different types of agencies, doing some black hat stuff in the old days. It's just amazing. So I really appreciate Thom Craver from CBS giving me the time to talk to him and learn about what he's done over the years.